Okay, here we are with Arthur Blodgett. Arthur is a Snipe sailor, as you know, and is the head coach of the Opti, I think, or of the junior program, I don't know, of the Lauderdale Yacht Club. And he's also a racing rules expert. I know he's working a lot with the kids, even during this day. And so, Arthur, uh, please, you can explain the rules 18, I think, and with a lot of example. And I think it will be a very nice and interesting webinar. Please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Pietro. And to clarify, I'm not necessarily a rules expert. I'm not a judge or an umpire, and I think it's always really beneficial to speak with judges and umpires and see how they're seeing situations and how they interpret the rules. And really what I am is just a teacher and a coach. And so that's really the basis for my rules knowledge. And I'm here to talk about Rule 18.
Great.
So let's start with Rule 18.3. And I'm just going to start by reading it. And then we'll go over some scenarios. So Rule 18.3 is tacking in the zone. If a boat in the zone of a mark to be left to port passes head to wind from port to starboard tack and then is fetching the mark, fetching means able to pass without tacking again or without crossing head to wind, she shall not cause a boat that has been on starboard tack since entering the zone to sail above close hauled to avoid contact, and she shall give mark room if that boat becomes overlapped inside her. When this rule applies between boats, Rule 18.2 does not apply between them. So I think the key phrase there is the boat that tacked shall not cause a boat that has been on starboard tack to sail above close hauled. So I'll give you an example of in picture form of a boat that breaks this rule. So in this scenario, we have the blue boat on starboard fetching a windward mark. The wind is coming from the top of the picture. And we have a green boat that is tacked in the zone. And at position 1, no part of Rule 18 applies. This is a port starboard situation in position 1. Position 2, as soon as the green boat is across head to wind, now Rule 13, while tacking applies, again, 18 is still off. And then when she completes the tack, she is subject, if she's lured, to Rule 15, acquiring right of way. So let's assume that the green boat did not break 10 or 13 or 15. She's still at position 3, is breaking Rule 18.3 because she has forced the blue boat to luff above a close hauled course. So the next picture I'll show is an example of where this rule is not broken. And I think a common misunderstanding that I hear from a lot of sailors is, well, when you tack in the zone, you have no rights. And that's not exactly what 18.3 is saying, right? So in this scenario, again, let's assume that the green boat does not break 10, 13, or 15. She completes the tack. The blue boat was over the ley line, is close reaching down to try to close the door. But after the green boat completes her tack, the blue boat has to head up, yes, but only to a close hauled course. And so in this scenario, assuming that blue 3 is close hauled, is not luffing, is not pinching, is just close hauled, there has been no foul here. So just a tip for when you're tacking in the zone and you want to be honest and know if you fouled, is what I like to do is complete my tack and then look over my shoulder and see if the boat that I have lee-bowed, see if their jib is luffing in normal trim. If their jib is luffing, then probably I've forced them above close hauled. And after I round the mark at the soonest reasonable opportunity, I should take my 2-turn penalty for breaking 18.3. If their sails are still full, telltale streaming, doesn't look like they are above close hauled, then there's no rules infraction here. The green boat is complying with 18.3, and actually what we have here is a Rule 11 windward leeward situation where the green boat has the rights of windward leeward over the blue. This third situation is kind of the last sentence of 18.3. And maybe the diagram is a little hard to understand, but again, just please pay attention to the numbers of the boats and take it step by step. The green boat at position 1 is crossing cleanly on the blue. And this is really like, in some ways, a conservative way to round the mark on port, is don't try to lee-bow somebody where you're going to tack too close. Just cross them and let them round the mark inside of you, just ahead of you. You know, you're in the high lane for the offset leg, and it's no problem. So in this diagram, green crosses blue, completes a tack, and then at position 3, blue has mark room on green. And maybe I have green 3 heading down a little more than she should be. She needs to give the blue boat room to round the mark.
So this is a conservative move, probably.
Yeah, if you
for
can
not
cross.
breaking, you are sure, if you are the port boat, you are sure that you are not breaking any rule.
If you're sure of your cross, it's often better to just cross and let them round inside than to try to plant a lee-bow, because as we know, the boat slows down when it tacks. So yes. Yeah, so that's kind of my take on 18.3. And again, there's no blanket, you have no rights tacking in the zone. It's just when you tack in the zone, you may not make a boat go above close hauled that was fetching on starboard, and if they become overlapped inside, you shall give them room. All right, so the next part of Rule 18 that I want to talk about usually happens at a leeward mark. And if we're to put it in legal terms, it's the concept that in America we call burden of proof. In other words, if I'm accused of a crime, I'm innocent until proven guilty. The burden of proof is on the state to prove that that I committed the crime.
In Italy, that we are looking always to the old times, so to the Latin rules, we say onus probandi.
Onus probandi, nice, good.
Burden of proof, no?
Yes, the onus, right? So this is from 18.2e, and it says, if there is a reasonable doubt that a boat obtained, means to get, or broke and overlap in time, meaning in time for the first of the boats in the group to enter the zone, it shall be presumed that she did not. So I have a couple pictures to illustrate kind of these close situations. So in this first one, we're sailing downwind. Again, the wind from the top the cooking sheet,
Mm.
and we're entering the zone. And at about 4 boat lengths from the mark, position 1, it's clear. Both boats agree that there is no overlap. And then
where you have to leave the mark on port on
yes, thank you. Yes, this one's a I don't know if you can see down at the bottom. This one's a port
okay.
round.
There is an arrow. Yeah.
Yeah, part of an arrow. Good question. So it's a port round leeward mark. So again, at 4 lengths, we're in agreement. There is no overlap, but perhaps because the green boat is sailing covered by the wind shadow of the blue, the blue boat is overtaking, and as the bow of the green boat enters the zone, there is a dispute, a debate about whether or not there was an overlap. And so 18.2e is essentially saying the onus, the burden of proof, is on the blue boat to prove that she had an overlap, and if there is a dispute, it will be presumed that she did not. So if this goes to the room, let's say blue takes mark room, and green protests, and this goes to a jury, they will likely disqualify the blue boat from the race. They must presume that the overlap, if there is a doubt as to whether or not it was established, they will presume that it was not established. Same applies for breaking it. This diagram, again, a port round leeward mark. Position 1, we have an overlap that is agreed upon at 4 or 5 boat lengths from the mark between blue 1 and green 1. And green, sailing in clearer air, is drawing ahead of blue, but as she enters the zone, the zone, by the way, is in fleet racing is defined as a 3 boat length circle around the mark. And the way I coach sailors to kind of envision overlaps at the mark room, at the leeward mark, is just take an aerial photograph just like this of the situation when the first boat enters the zone, and then draw your overlap lines. So again, there's a doubt as to whether green broke the overlap, and if blue takes room and there's a protest, if green takes room, closes blue out, maybe doesn't let her around the mark, or there's a collision and a protest, it will be presumed that blue had mark room.
So in this case, the situation is the opposite.
Right. It's a boat that's breaking, right? Whereas this one was a boat that's establishing. And in both scenarios, the burden of proof is on the boat that is breaking or establishing. And so I think for sailors, the best way to negotiate this is to start talking to each other early. At 10 boat lengths from the mark is usually when I'll say I'm overlapped, or there is no overlap, to the other boats, and they might say we're not in the zone, and I'll say agreed, right? Agreed, we're not in the zone, but I am establishing a fact that's agreed upon between us as to the overlap. It's also nice when somebody has room to just say you have room, so that they can go about making a good mark rounding. I think that there's obviously a lot going on in the snipe coming into the leeward mark, getting the tension on, the mast in the right place, the pole down, the board down, the bang on, the Cunningham's on, etc. So there can be a lot of chaos inside of each boat, and so it's good if somebody has room to let them know early that you're going to give them room, so they can make a good seaman-like rounding. But yeah, I think in general, if sailors can be communicating at 10, communicate at 5, and then understand 18.2e that we'll have a way to resolve a dispute at 3 lengths from the mark. Another key part of this with the burden of proof is that this is the only part of the rule. If there's a reasonable doubt that a boat broke or established an overlap in time, it shall be presumed that she did not. So if there's a burden of proof explicitly, specifically put into the rules in this one part, what does that mean for burden of proof anywhere else? Does a port boat have to prove that she kept clear of a starboard boat? No more than the starboard boat has to prove that she did not. So in other words, because it's put in explicitly here, there is no burden of proof anywhere else in the rules. And a jury, a protest committee, will take evidence and they will find facts based on the testimony of both parties involved in a protest incident. And then they will apply the rules to those facts found. But there is no, except in the case of 18.2e, there is no onus, there's no burden of proof. Sorry, what was the Italian word for it again?
Onus probandi.
Onus probandi. There's no onus probandi.
Actually, is a Latin word. So
nice.
In Italian is onere della prova. So quite similar.
Cool. Right. So my point is that in other situations of the rules, there is no onus on either boat. It's just a matter of facts found, testimony that makes sense, witnesses, and then the judges finding facts, taking evidence, finding facts, and then applying the rules. All right, so I had a third situation that I wanted to go over. And this happens a lot in snipes in light air because we're sailing pretty hot angles towards each other, coming into a leeward mark. And so this is, again, a port round leeward mark, boats sailing high angles downwind in light air. And pardon my zone is not realistic now. I just couldn't fit a normal size zone. So just assume that's just pretend that's 3 boat lengths. That's not a realistic zone. But when the first boat enters the zone, it's not who gets to the zone first. This isn't freeze tag or capture the flag. It's not who gets to the zone first. It's what's the overlap when the first boat reaches the zone. And an overlap is a line drawn, a beam of your boat off of the furthest extensions to the bow or stern. So the rudder is part of the overlap. If the pole is in front of the bow, and that's a normal sailing position for it, I believe that the pole is then part of the overlap, the jib. So if there's an overlap now, which in this case there is, the blue boat actually has mark room here. And while the green boat may be able to just round ahead of her, that's fine. Mark room doesn't mean I have to let you round ahead of me. It just means I have to give you room to round the mark. If I give you room to round the mark by rounding in front of you, no problem, no foul. But let's say
actually,
blue is sailing faster than green.
Not only room, but also keep clear because it's on starboard. So more than room. The blue boat is on starboard. So it needs more room. I mean, no, keep clear plus room.
Right. Yep, yep, totally.
Yeah.
So I call these converging angles, right? And when there's converging angles, it's really hard for there not to be an overlap. I mean, if you're reaching into either gate from kind of the inside of the course out, you're likely to have to give a large portion of the fleet room. Although again, you might give them room by rounding ahead of them. But if you are, really down speed with all of the boat handling involved in in a mark rounding, then you have to be careful about owing room to everyone. So at the last Snipe Worlds, there's a situation that happened a lot, and I think caused a lot of aggravation for competitors, um, and that was a boat entering the zone, but then leaving the zone because they were giving room to other boats. We had very crowded gate roundings. This was a good problem to have. I mean, it means that the fleet is very evenly matched, that everyone is getting to the leeward mark after 2 miles of sailing in a big cluster. And so it was in some ways unavoidable. The other aspect of the Snipe is that there's no break in the Snipe. Um, Whereas with the Opti, you can jam your rudder at full 90 degrees to the center line, and the rudder can be a break downwind. The Snipe rudder only turns about 45 degrees. Snipe is a heavy boat that has a lot of momentum. So in slowing down and giving room, a lot of boats like this blue one that's giving room to I just sketched a red boat on here, but that red boat kind of represents a lot of boats, right? Let's say you entered the zone and you owed 4 boats room, and at position 1, blue 1 has room on green 1, right? You've got to look at the numbers for this diagram on how to animate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Blue 1 is way clear ahead, right? Green is not even in the picture for her. Green is about 2 boat lengths behind. But then because she is giving boats room, blue sails out of the zone, right? And you see blue 2 exit the zone, and you see blue 3 jibe and be about to re-enter the zone at a converging angle, much like in the last picture, right? The converging angle opens up your overlap. And here, blue 3 now owes green 3 room. And blue 3 may think that a grave injustice has been done, that green 3 was not even in the picture when blue got to the zone. But because she exited the zone, maybe sailed 4 boat lengths from the mark while giving those 4 boats inside of her room, she now owes room to the latecomer. And I'll just add that green has a pretty good view of how many boat lengths blue is from the mark. You could sometimes make this maneuver without leaving the zone, but there were scenarios where boats left the zone and then re-entered and had to give even more boats room, which they were
Arthur,
pretty unhappy about.
For you, if you are the blue boat, which kind of tactic you adopt for avoiding this thing? Nothing. You can do anything.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think a lot of it is it comes down to communication and boat handling as well, and so really I would recommend the second your bow is in the zone, or even before you try to slow down, do a downwind deceleration where maybe you take the pole down early, you put the board down early, you trim in your mainsail all the way, and yes, scull back and forth with the rudder as much as you can. Sculling is allowed to slow the boat if that's the intention. and just try to maintain that position one for as long as you can while you let the other boats round, and continue to communicate to the green boats that are coming in after you that they do not have room. So in other words, try to control the zone. It's almost like you're mark trapping the boats behind you, and just allowing the boats ahead to round and clear out, and then you go. So yeah, that's a great question, and I think just an early takedown, communications on the overlaps, and let the four boats ahead of you know, hey, you have room, right? So they can make the quickest, best rounding possible.
And sometimes I remember a good article of Carol Cronin. You have to choose the gate, the mark at the gate. Sometimes looking forward and behind, and thinking about the mess that can happen in one mark or in the other. And for this reason, choose the mark. It can be also another solution.
Right. Yeah, that was a good article by Carol, and she gave I think 10 ways to choose a gate.
Yeah.
And for me, it's usually it's two. It's is one significantly higher than the other, and then which one, as you're saying, can I realistically get to? Like, which one am I going to be able to round? If even if one gate is favored, if I'm giving room to 6 boats, I should just go to the other gate.
Yeah, but for sure, for example, at the Worlds in Ilabella, I remember the usually the right-hand side of the course was strongly favored, and so probably also at the gate you have no choice, or very few choice.
Yeah, possibly. But I mean, it's tricky because, as you see from this diagram, if you sail your run to be in the middle and to have options late, you may be ending up having to give room to boats at both gates, right? Whereas if you commit to a side, as this blue boat has, then you're more likely to have mark room. And by the way, this is a starboard rounding gate here. This was a port rounding gate here. So it's tough. I the first day of the regatta, I was the blue boat, and I realized, like, all these boats are just going in there, but I may have left the zone, and so now they have room. And I think on the third day, I was the green boat at one point, and just let boats know, hey, you're out of the zone. I can see the 3 boat lengths, and took my room. So I think here again, people would get maybe really upset with each other at the gates, and I think my point is that we were all trying to follow the rules, and these situations are really tricky. And but if we understand them well and we communicate well, then as a fleet we can hopefully have harmony.
Right.
All right. Well, that's all I have for you, Pietro.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing this, and
Thank you
to all the snipers around the world. Stay safe, and I miss you guys.
Yeah, and maybe if you have any other idea about tactics, strategies, or other rules, you are welcome. It's a pleasure to have you for these webinars. And yes, I hope to see you again in any case on the race course as soon as possible.
You as well. We almost had the Don Q, but it's a good thing we didn't. And yeah, thanks so much, Pietro.
Thank you.